Hello, I'm CJ Werleman, and this week we reveal how Israel's genocidal war in Gaza is also one part of the Zionist state's total war against Islam. But first, please remember to like and subscribe to our show. Now let's get into it. Israel's so-called war in Gaza meets the textbook definition of genocide because it's acutely evident it intends to destroy all traces of Palestinian life, either in whole or in part, with the country's leaders openly boasting they aim to eradicate and annihilate Palestinian life, history, religion, and culture. This is a genocide from end to end because Israel has not only snuffed out 42,000 innocent lives and counting, but also it has completely destroyed the Palestinian territory, making it totally unlivable for decades to come, leaving less than 10% of the land for 2 million civilians to find shelter. Genocide is more than the destruction of the physical and the material. It's also about annihilating the cultural and spiritual, which is why Israel is hell-bent on destroying the predominant religion of Palestine, the religion of Islam. In other words, there's two genocides taking place here. One that exterminates the Palestinians and another that aims to eradicate Islam from Palestine. And I'm not talking only about Palestine here, because Israel is waging a global war against the religious faith of 2 billion people, of which we'll dive into the details in a moment. But here's where things stand in Gaza. Israel has destroyed more than 1,000 of the territory's 1,100 mosques. Now think about this for a moment, and imagine if a Muslim country deliberately bombed just one synagogue or church. The entire Western world would have a collective fit, and a new war on terror would be called. But Israel has wiped more than 90% of Gaza's 1,100 mosques off the face of the planet. Gone. How is this okay? How isn't the entire world jumping all over the criminal Zionist state for its physical, material, cultural, and spiritual genocide of the Palestinian people? Where's the collective outrage for Israeli forces laying several tons of explosives inside the walls of the greater mosque in Khan Yunis on Saturday? A house of worship that's older than the Notre Dame Cathedral in France. But now it's no more.
عليها الجزيرة تم التقاطها بكاميرات جنود إسرائيليين ومسيرات إسرائيلية أسقطت في غزة تكشف حجم الجرائم بحق المساجد.
This is the deliberate erasure of Islam in Palestine, and with no end in sight, as US manufactured missiles continue to rain down on every mosque in Gaza, and even on Fridays, when Israel is fully aware that worshippers are gathered together inside in prayer.
אתם מכינים שבת, אנחנו מכינים לכם פיצוץ. פיצוץ של מסגד, שלא יבוא תפילות יום שישי יותר! היידה! עם ישראל חי! עם ישראל חי! עם ישראל! עם ישראל!
What kind of demented and deranged demon takes great pleasure from bombing a house of worship? I mean, other than Israel. We are, however, talking about a truly sick society. Even CNN, which has long acted as Israel's chief propagandist in the United States, revealed how Israeli soldiers are producing instructional videos for a global audience on how to blow up a mosque.
This is a how-to video on how to blow up a mosque in Gaza. Format is internet fluent. The content is very real. Filmed, edited, and posted on Instagram by an Israeli soldier. It's one of dozens reviewed by CNN. For many.
Last week, Israeli soldiers filmed themselves setting fire to the Quran inside a mosque in Gaza City. But this is just one of many instances in which the Zionist goons have desecrated Islam's holy book while committing genocide. The message this sends is clear, that Israel's declared war on Islam, and not just in Palestine, but across the entire globe. This message was carried with a bullhorn last week, when Israel's security minister declared his intention to build a synagogue on the compound that's home to Islam's third holiest site. But this is about much more than threats and bellicose language. Israel believes it can turn back the tide of Palestine's growing popularity by undermining the growing popularity of Islam. And we are talking about a concerted effort to attack the Islamic faith with a well-financed propaganda campaign like no other in the Zionist state's history. And it's one that's already having deadly effects on Muslims across the planet, from Europe to India and from the United Kingdom to the United States. We are talking about a multi-billion-dollar effort to sow hatred and fear about Islam in the form of articles, videos, ads and reports, with Israel and a consortium of pro-Israel groups providing 70% of this total funding.
I have written a long article in the American Studies Association journal with my estimate that 70% of the funding for the Islamophobic industry, meaning organization groups and individuals that demonize Islam and Muslims, comes from pro-Israel sources.
In the United States alone, more than $200 million has been funneled from Israel and pro-Israel groups to a network of anti-Muslim organizations, whose primary mission is to undermine sympathy for the Palestinians and build solidarity for Israel by tying the religion of Islam to global terrorism. We saw this propaganda go full bore in the years after 9/11. But by 2022, the flow of Islamophobia funding fell to a trickle, mostly because right-wing political parties in the West had moved on from pushing anti-Muslim hate to targeting immigrants writ large. But today, Israel has returned to the well of Islamophobia by allocating more than $100 million to tilting US elections in its favor, and hundreds of millions of dollars more to attack Islam and dehumanize Muslims, and then by extension, the Palestinians. The goal is to make Americans think, sound, and act like this.
Afraid of people that have an ideology akin to Sharia law that cannot coexist.
Constantly telling us, no, like, go back to your country. You don't belong here. This is our America.
Send them back to the dustbin they come from and let them go sit on a camel.
Needless to say, this is having deadly consequences on Muslim Americans, with the US experiencing a 70% upward surge in anti-Muslim hate crimes since October last year, resulting in 5,000 attacks during a 4-month period alone, with Muslims in Britain faring even worse, as brutally depicted in the recent race riots that swept across the United Kingdom, resulting in the lynching of Muslim men, women and children in the streets at the hands of white racist thugs, who were conned into believing a Muslim was responsible for the recent stabbing attack that took place against children in the UK city of Southport. The main instigators of this wave of anti-Muslim violence were a number of Israel-based individuals and organizations, including the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, Israel's cyber army, and the notorious Zionist lobby-funded street hooligan Tommy Robinson.
Why are people angry? I'll tell you why they're angry. Because Hamas were allowed to overtake London, overtake our capital city, every weekend, flying ISIS flags, Hamas flags, calling for jihad. The police did nothing.
Robinson's ties to the Israel lobby are well documented. Israeli money has not only funded his violent anti-Islam rallies, but also his legal fees. Remembering that the Israel-funded Middle East Forum paid for his court costs after he had violated a court order by live streaming footage of a case involving an alleged sexual grooming gang. And as you can see, I have been following the Zionist money trail for years, having revealed the depth and breadth of its tentacles in the United States, Europe and Australia. And in this report, I showed how the effort to tie Islam to terrorism started in the year 1979. When Israel hosted a conference on international terrorism in Tel Aviv, in which notable attendees included George H. Bush and Likud Party founder Menachem Begin. The conference had one goal: to reach an agreement that right-wing parties in Israel and the United States should adopt rhetoric that falsely portrays the Palestinian struggle for liberation to be akin to Islamic terrorism. And they also agreed to make the case that Islam is not an ordinary religion, but a political religion, and therefore because terrorism is an act of political violence, the word terrorism applies only to Islam and not Christianity or Judaism.
The idea, first of all, of Islamic terrorism was invented by Zionist intellectuals. The idea that Muslims are all the same and that they are politically reactionary, they will turn to violence. These are ideas which have been developed and pushed by the Zionists over many, many years, since the 1980s in most cases.
And by tying Islam to terrorism, US neoconservatives gained political cover for their imperialistic ambitions in the Middle East, with Zionists benefiting from building Western sympathies for Israel's struggle against so-called Palestinian Islamic terrorism. This anti-Islam propaganda became mainstreamed in the post-9/11 era, resulting in a year-on-year spike in anti-Muslim hate crimes in Europe and the United States. And we should also remember that the anti-Muslim terrorists who attacked mosques and murdered worshippers in Christchurch, Chapel Hill, Quebec City, and elsewhere filled their respective manifestos with Zionist-generated misconceptions about Islam. Therefore, there's never been a more important time to expose and counter Israel's financial ties to the Islamophobia industry, because this money is not only being used to undermine solidarity for Palestine, but also to incite violence against Muslims everywhere. But that's my time for today. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and we kindly ask you please support our effort to expose and confront injustices in the Muslim world by becoming a member of this show at patreon.com/CJWirleman. We can't produce, sustain and grow this show without your help, and we offer exclusive benefit and content to those who do. I just can't stress enough just how much we need and appreciate your assistance. But for now, good night, good morning, wherever you are, and stay blessed.